everything. Waking up tomorrow and discovering that nothing in your life has changed, except one thing: your ability to command every minute of your day with the precision, clarity, everything, and discipline of a genius. No more drifting, no more overwhelm. No more, "I'll do it later." Just mastery, quiet, everything, undeniable mastery, over the same 24 hours that every great achiever has used to build empires, transform their identity, and rewrite their destiny. This audiobook is your blueprint, everything, a guide to reclaiming your time, reshaping your habits, and unlocking the version of you that has always been capable, but never fully unleashed. Everything. Your 24 hours are about to become your greatest advantage. Time has a way of slipping through our fingers, not because it moves fast, but because we move unconsciously. Everything. Most people wake up and enter their day like a passenger boarding a train they didn't schedule, going somewhere they didn't choose, making stops they never intended. Everything. And somewhere inside that rushed, reactive rhythm, the thought creeps in, "I don't have enough time." Everything. But the truth that every genius eventually discovers, is that time isn't something you run out of. It's something you learn to command. Everything. When you observe the people who accomplish extraordinary things, the ones who seem to bend life into shapes that serve their dreams, you notice something subtle yet revolutionary. Everything. They don't manage time. They direct time. They treat it as a resource that responds to identity, not circumstance. Their days don't unfold randomly. Their hours don't scatter. Everything. Their minutes don't drift. Everything they do, from the moment their feet touch the floor in the morning, begins with a simple, powerful inner statement: "I choose what happens next." Everything. That is the beginning of the genius mindset. The understanding that your relationship with time is really a relationship with yourself. Think of someone you admire. Everything. Not necessarily someone famous, just someone who seems to live with clarity, energy, and intention. Maybe it's a colleague who moves through projects gracefully. Everything. Maybe it's a relative who balances work, family, and personal goals without collapsing under stress. Everything. Or maybe it's that friend who always seems to be progressing in life, learning new skills, building something meaningful, staying consistent beyond the initial burst of motivation. Everything. If you pay attention, you'll notice that their life isn't easier than yours. They don't magically get 26 hours a day. What they have is a different inner operating system. Everything. They don't wake up thinking, "I hope today goes well." They wake up thinking, "I will shape today into what it needs to be." Everything. That tiny shift, from hoping to shaping, is the birth of a new relationship with time. Most of us grew up hearing that time management is about schedules, calendars, timers, everything, and productivity strategies. But those tools only work for a few days or weeks at best, because they focus on behavior while ignoring identity. Everything. You can download a new planner and still procrastinate. You can write your goals down and still feel directionless. You can plan perfectly and fail repeatedly, not because you're incapable. Everything. But because you're following someone else's structure instead of rewriting the relationship you have with time itself. A genius approaches time from the inside out. Everything. They begin with the question, "Who am I becoming?" Not in some abstract, inspirational sense, but in a grounded, practical way. If the identity is clear, the priorities become sharp. Everything. If the priorities are sharp, the hours naturally align. And when the hours align, the day becomes something you sculpt rather than something you survive. Everything. There's a story of a young architect who worked under a master builder in a small coastal town. Every day, the apprentice would rush into the workshop. Everything. Overwhelmed by the tasks ahead, drawings to complete, materials to order, deadlines to meet. Meanwhile, the master builder moved slowly, deliberately, almost peacefully. Everything. Yet produced more work at a higher quality. One day the apprentice asked, "How do you stay so calm when there's so much to do?" The master smiled and said, "Everything. I don't look at my day as a list of tasks. I look at my day as a reflection of the person I'm choosing to be." The apprentice frowned, unsure what that meant. The master continued, "Everything. When I design a building, I don't rush. I don't panic. I don't react to the noise. I stay true to the blueprint. Why would I treat my time any differently? Everything. My hours follow my identity, not my stress. This is the heart of genius, level time direction. It is an internal blueprint. You might think, that sounds good, but my life is chaotic. Everything. I don't get to choose everything that happens in my day. But neither do geniuses. Life throws demands at all of us. Everything. What separates ordinary overwhelm from extraordinary mastery is the ability to decide what each moment means and how each moment is used. Consider someone juggling a full-time job, kids, everything, responsibilities and personal dreams. On paper, their schedule should be a disaster, and yet some of these individuals still find ways to grow, to learn, to build something meaningful, everything. It isn't because they have empty hours lying around. It's because they treat their time like currency. They ask, is this minute an investment or an expense? Everything. Not everything can be invested, and that's okay. Rest is an investment. Joy is an investment. Connection is an investment. But distraction, overthinking, everything, procrastination, those are expenses with no return. The genius mindset trains you to see the difference. Let's imagine a simple moment you sit down to work, everything, intending to focus for 20 minutes. Your phone lights up, a notification buzzes. A thought pulls you to check something, quickly. Before you know it, everything. The 20 minutes become 2 hours of scattered attention. Most people blame themselves for this. They label it as laziness, lack of discipline, or a busy mind, everything. But the issue isn't discipline, it's identity. You're behaving as the version of yourself who reacts, not the version who directs. Now imagine the same moment, everything, but with a different internal dialogue. Before you begin, you tell yourself, for the next 20 minutes, I'm being a person who stays present. This is who I am right now, everything. That identity shift changes your posture, your focus, your entire energy. You're not fighting distraction, you're choosing alignment. And alignment always strengthens attention, everything. This is where the empowerment begins. When you realize that reclaiming your time is not about forcing yourself into strict routines, everything, but about choosing the version of yourself who honors the hours you're already given. You can see this clearly in people who master their morning routines, everything. Two people can wake up at the same time, drink the same coffee, follow the same checklist. But one feels grounded and purposeful, while the other feels rushed and scattered. Everything. The difference is mindset, not method. The grounded person wakes up thinking, this morning sets the tone for who I am. The scattered person wakes up thinking, everything. I hope I can get everything done. One directs the day, the other hopes the day behaves itself, and yet the shift is incredibly accessible. It doesn't require perfection, everything. It requires presence. You can begin at any moment by asking a simple question. What would the more intentional version of me do with the next 10 minutes? Not tomorrow, not next month, everything. Not when life is easier. Right now, this minute, what would the genius version of me choose? Time starts bending in your favor the moment you start answering that question honestly, everything. Think of someone starting a new skill, like writing or learning an instrument. The average person waits for long stretches of time, an uninterrupted hour, a free morning, everything, the perfect conditions. Weeks pass, nothing moves. But someone with the genius mindset uses the smallest pockets, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, even a 2-minute window, everything. They don't wait for time, they claim time, and because they claim it consistently, they progress faster than someone who waits for the perfect hour that never arrives, everything. This is why geniuses appear to do more in less time. They understand something simple, small, directed moments compound into extraordinary results. Time, when shaped with intention, expands everything. You can feel this expansion the moment you decide to stop being a passive participant in your day. The moment you put your identity at the center of your hours instead of your circumstances. Everything. The moment you realize that every decision, to focus, to rest, to step forward, to breathe, to prioritize, to let go, is an act of direction, not reaction, and slowly, almost quietly, everything. The relationship shifts. You stop saying, I don't have time. You start saying, I will make time for what matters. You stop feeling behind. You start feeling aligned. Everything. You stop judging your days by how much you accomplished. You start evaluating them by how intentionally you lived. The genius mindset isn't a gift, it's a choice. A daily, everything, moment-to-moment choice to direct your time from the inside out. To carry yourself as someone whose hours reflect their identity, not their stress. Everything. With every small moment you direct instead of react to, your self-belief grows, your clarity sharpens. Everything. Your life begins to feel less like a race and more like a composition, a deliberate, meaningful, powerful design unfolding one intentional hour at a time. Everything. There's a quiet kind of confidence that settles into your life when you know your day is already set up to work in your favor. Not rushed, not chaotic, not improvised moment to moment, everything, but intentionally shaped, almost engineered, to lead you toward the person you want to become. Everything. Precision planning isn't about squeezing more into your schedule or turning yourself into a rigid machine. Everything. It's about designing your hours with such clarity and purpose that the day practically wins itself. And the beautiful part is, anyone can do this. Everything. High performers aren't born with some secret ability to plan perfectly. They simply learned how to turn their days into allies rather than obstacles. Everything. Think about how most people wake up in the morning. The alarm rings, they reach for their phone, and within seconds they're scrolling through notifications, messages, everything. Other people's demands. Before their feet even touch the ground, they've surrendered their attention. They're already reacting, responding, catching up, trying to put out small fires. Everything. And the rest of the day follows that same pattern. One unplanned moment after another, one impulsive decision, one distraction, one delay. Until nighttime comes, everything. And they realize they were busy all day, but didn't actually move closer to anything meaningful. Now picture a different beginning. Everything. Imagine waking up and knowing that your day has already been decided by your wiser self, the version of you who cares about long-term goals, clarity, and peace. Everything. Imagine moving through your morning with direction, hitting your tasks with intention, and ending the day with that rare feeling of genuine satisfaction, the kind that whispers, everything. I did the right things today. This is what precision planning creates. It removes guesswork, reduces stress, and gives you momentum before the day even begins. Everything. But to plan with precision, you first have to understand the truth about human behavior. We rarely drift into the life we want. We structure our way into it. High performers know this. Everything. They don't hope for good days. They build them. And that building starts with clarity. Before anything else, clarity is the foundation. What matters? What truly moves the needle? Everything. What actions today will bring you closer to the results you're chasing? If you don't answer those questions, you're not planning. You're just filling time. Everything. Think of a pilot preparing for takeoff. They don't casually stroll into the cockpit and say, "Let's try going north and see what happens." There's a flight plan, a destination, everything, a route, a checklist. It's detailed, deliberate, and intentional. And because of that clarity, the plane can reach the exact place it was meant to go. Your day should feel the same. Everything. You wake up knowing your direction. You know your top priorities. You know when you will work, when you will rest, and what absolutely must be done before anything else. Everything. Your day becomes the flight plan to your future. One of the most powerful habits of high performers is planning the next day the night before. It takes just a few minutes. Everything. But it shifts everything. Because when you plan at night, you're calm. You're reflective. You're not in the rush of the morning. Everything. You can think clearly about what tomorrow truly requires. You can prioritize wisely. You can choose what matters instead of letting the world choose for you. Everything. Imagine sitting down for 5 minutes, reviewing your goals, and deciding the 3 most important things you must accomplish tomorrow. Just 3, not 30. Not your entire to-do list. Everything. Just the crucial actions that will create progress that matters. When you wake up the next day, you no longer waste mental energy wondering where to start. You already know everything, and that clarity eliminates hesitation, which is one of the biggest killers of momentum. High performers also understand that planning isn't about controlling every minute, everything. It's about directing the essence of the day. It's about knowing what must happen for the day to be considered a win. Think of someone training for a marathon. Everything. They don't just run whenever they feel like it. They have planned sessions, long runs, speed work, recovery days. They might not know the exact weather, the exact traffic, everything, or the exact feeling they'll have when they tie their shoes, but they know the purpose of each day. Planning your life works the same way. It's not about perfection, everything. It's about intention, and part of that intention is simplicity. Complexity kills consistency. If you plan days that require superhuman discipline or endless motivation, everything, you won't follow through. But if you design your days with simple, achievable structure, you'll build a rhythm that becomes almost automatic. For example, instead of telling yourself, everything, tomorrow I will be incredibly productive, you plan that from 9 to 11 a.m., you'll focus fully on one meaningful task. That's it. 2 hours of deep work, then maybe a break, everything. Then the next key task. Simplicity doesn't weaken your day. It strengthens it. I once met an entrepreneur who ran multiple businesses and still managed to maintain remarkable calm. Everything, no stress, no rushing, no scattered energy. His secret was surprisingly simple. Every evening, everything. He chose his big three for the next day and blocked them onto his calendar before anything else. Meetings, calls, errands. All of that came after. He told me, everything. If you don't protect your priorities, everything else will invade them. And he was right. The world is full of distractions that pretend to be urgent. Everything. But precision planning helps you see through the noise. It forces you to define what's truly urgent versus what's merely loud. Another powerful technique high performers use is batching. Everything. Instead of handling tasks randomly throughout the day, they group similar tasks together. Emails in one block, creative work in another, administrative tasks in another. Why? Everything. Because switching tasks constantly is like restarting an engine over and over. It burns time, energy, and focus. But when you batch tasks, your mind stays in the same mode. Everything. You get more done faster, with less stress. It's like cleaning your entire kitchen at once instead of washing a single dish every 10 minutes. Momentum accelerates when tasks are grouped. Everything. But planning isn't only about work, it's also about building in buffers. Life is unpredictable. Things take longer than expected. Unexpected interruptions happen. Everything. High performers plan for reality, not fantasy. They set time blocks with margin. They leave space between tasks. Everything. They don't chain their day so tightly that one delay knocks everything off track. These buffers aren't signs of weakness. They're signs of wisdom. Everything. They protect your peace and keep your plan intact even when life gets messy. There's also emotional power in planning. When your day is organized, your mind feels lighter. Everything. You don't carry the quiet anxiety of uncertainty. You don't constantly wonder, what should I be doing right now? You already know. And that certainty frees up emotional energy, everything, which you can then invest into your work, your relationships, and your growth. When people say planning changed their lives, they don't just mean they became more productive. Everything. They mean they became calmer, more confident, more present. They began to feel capable rather than overwhelmed. And perhaps most importantly, precision planning builds trust with yourself. Everything. When you plan a day and follow through, even partially, you're sending a message to your own mind. I keep my promises. That self-trust compounds. It strengthens your identity. Everything. It reshapes your sense of who you are. You stop living in reaction and you start living in creation. You wake up not hoping the day will go well. Everything. But knowing you've already put the pieces in place for it to do so. And as this habit grows, something remarkable happens. Your days begin to flow. Not perfectly, not flawlessly, everything, but smoothly. They start to carry a rhythm that supports you. You begin to feel that life is not something happening to you. It's something you're actively shaping. Everything. You're not scattered. You're not guessing. You're not overwhelmed. You're organized, intentional, and moving forward with clarity. This is the gift of precision planning. Everything. Days that feel aligned, focused, and surprisingly peaceful. Days where progress isn't forced, it's designed. Days that win themselves long before they begin. Everything. Habit architecture begins long before a habit is ever formed. It starts in the quiet moments, those tiny, almost forgettable seconds where you make a choice that seems insignificant. Everything. But ultimately shapes the entire direction of your life. If you pay close attention, you'll notice that the people you admire, the ones who move through life with confidence, clarity, everything, and a sense of unstoppable momentum, aren't depending on motivation to carry them forward. Everything. They're not waking up every day hoping they'll feel like it. They've built a structure around their life, a kind of invisible scaffolding made of small, everything, consistent actions that don't rely on mood or energy. Their habits are doing the heavy lifting, even when their emotions don't. Everything. Most people wait for a surge of inspiration before they act. They wait to feel ready, to feel certain, to feel energized. But motivation is like weather, beautiful when it's here. Everything. Unpredictable when it's not. The true genius isn't the one who feels motivated the most. It's the one who's built a system that doesn't collapse when motivation fades. Everything. Think of a musician practicing scales long after the excitement of learning a new instrument has faded. Think of an athlete training on the days when their legs feel heavy. Everything. Think of a writer sitting at their desk, even when the words don't come easily. This disciplined repetition isn't punishment. It's liberation. Because once a habit takes root, everything, it becomes effortless, automatic, and self-sustaining. Imagine walking through your home in the dark. Even without the lights on, you know exactly where the furniture is. Everything. You've navigated it so many times that your body moves with familiarity and ease. This is what habits do inside your mind. Everything. They create familiar pathways, mental routes you can follow without thinking. When you repeat an action enough times, your brain begins to automate it. It stops asking questions. Everything. It stops resisting. It simply follows the path you've carved, and this automation frees up your mental energy for the things that matter most. You've experienced this in small ways. Everything. Maybe it's the way you automatically check your phone when you wake up, or the way you always drive home using the same route without consciously deciding it. Everything. These habits weren't built through dramatic effort, they were built through repetition. Everything. The good news, the empowering news, is that you can use this same mechanism to build habits that elevate you rather than distract you. Everything. You can design your behavior instead of reacting to your impulses. But here's the key: habit architecture isn't about making your life rigid or mechanical. Everything. It's about making your success inevitable. When you build systems around your goals, you remove the emotional friction that normally stops you. Everything. You don't have to negotiate with yourself every day. You don't have to battle procrastination every morning. Your habits make the decision for you long before you even wake up. Everything. It becomes easier to act than to avoid acting. Think about someone trying to get healthier. If they rely on motivation, they may go to the gym on Monday, skip Tuesday because they're tired. Everything. Go again on Wednesday, then disappear for the rest of the week. They feel guilty, they feel frustrated, and eventually, they stop trying altogether. Everything. But if that same person builds a system, laying their workout clothes on a chair the night before, scheduling a 20-minute routine that doesn't require willpower, everything, tracking their progress in a simple, satisfying way, they create an environment where the path of least resistance leads them forward, not backward. The habit becomes a kind of autopilot. Everything. We often underestimate the power of small actions. We think success must come from big leaps, dramatic gestures, or heroic bursts of effort. Everything. But if you were to shadow a highly effective person for a day, you'd notice that their life is actually composed of modest actions done with stunning consistency. Everything. It's the morning routine that grounds them, the planning session that clarifies their day, the 2 or 3 high-impact tasks they perform without fail, the small disciplines repeated. Everything. Almost effortlessly over and over. It's like a dripping faucet filling a bucket. At first, it seems insignificant. A drop, another drop, barely noticeable. But over time, the bucket fills. Everything, and eventually it overflows. And that overflow is what people see. They see the result, the breakthrough, the success, without understanding the invisible drops that built it. Everything. You may not be able to transform your life overnight, but you can begin placing these drops immediately. Small actions that, repeated daily, compound into something extraordinary. Everything. One of the biggest misconceptions about habits is that they require perfect consistency. They don't. What they require is rhythm. Rhythm is forgiving. Everything. Rhythm allows space for real life, for interruptions, for off days, for surprises. Perfection punishes you when you miss a day. Rhythm simply invites you back into the flow. Everything. When you think in terms of rhythm, you stop seeing a missed day as failure and start seeing it as part of a long, sustainable journey. You become patient with yourself. Everything. Yet committed to your direction. Let's consider a real-life example. Imagine a young professional named Sam. Sam wanted to build a habit of reading 20 minutes every night. Everything. But every time he tried, he lasted a week before losing momentum. Why? Because he tried to force it at the end of the day when he was already exhausted. So instead of forcing discipline, everything, Sam redesigned his environment. He placed the book on his pillow every morning. This meant he couldn't get into bed without picking it up. It wasn't a battle anymore. Everything. It was simply part of the flow of his evening. Within 2 weeks, reading became natural. Within 2 months, it became part of who he was. He didn't feel like someone trying to read more. Everything. He felt like a reader. Identity is the ultimate outcome of habit architecture. When you repeat a behavior enough times, your brain begins to adopt it as part of your self-image. Everything. And once your identity shifts, your behavior follows automatically. A person who sees themselves as disciplined doesn't spend all day arguing with themselves about whether to act. Everything. A person who sees themselves as productive doesn't have to hype themselves up. A person who sees themselves as healthy doesn't wage war with every snack. Everything identity quietly drives action from the inside out. This is why the smallest habits often lead to the biggest changes. Everything. A single glass of water in the morning can shift your identity towards someone who cares for their body. Writing one sentence a day can shift your identity towards someone who creates. Everything. Cleaning your workspace for 2 minutes can shift your identity towards someone who values clarity. Once your identity begins to shift, your habits reinforce it. Everything. Creating a powerful loop that carries you forward. But none of this happens by accident. Habit architecture requires intention. Not willpower, not intensity, intention. Everything. It requires you to look at your daily life and ask, what is one action I can make easier? What is one behavior I can automate? Everything. What is one habit I can anchor to something I already do? When you attach a new behavior to an existing one, like stretching after brushing your teeth, everything, or planning your day right after breakfast, you allow your mind to piggyback on patterns it already knows. You make the new behavior feel familiar, safe, and easy to follow. Everything. Your environment plays an enormous role as well. If your environment contradicts your goals, your habits will struggle to survive. But if your environment supports your goals, everything, your habits will thrive without resistance. Want to drink more water? Keep a bottle within reach. Want to reduce screen time? Charge your devices far from your bed. Want to eat healthier? Everything. Make the healthy option the easiest option. Genius, level productivity doesn't come from force, it comes from design. As you begin shaping your own habit architecture, everything, give yourself permission to start small, because small is powerful, small is sustainable. Small builds confidence, and confidence is the spark that keeps you going when the novelty fades. Everything. Each small action whispers to your mind, I can do this. And when your mind believes it, the world around you begins to change. Everything. Every habit you build becomes a quiet partner in your success. Every system you put in place becomes a guide that gently leads you, even on the days when you're tired or uncertain. Everything. And every small behavior, repeated with intention, forms the rhythm that moves your life forward. Not in sudden leaps, but in steady, unstoppable momentum. Everything. Your future self is already waiting at the end of these small choices. And every day, through the habits you create, you step toward that version of you with clarity, discipline, everything. And a sense of genius, level purpose that no momentary loss of motivation can silence. Focus is not something that simply happens to you. It's something you create, something you protect, everything, and something you choose, again and again, every hour of your day. And the truth is, most people never learn how to do that. They grow up believing distraction is normal, everything, that mental noise is unavoidable, and that losing attention is just part of modern life. But it isn't. Focus is a skill, a discipline, a form of self-respect, everything. And when you begin to master it, your days change, your work changes, your inner world changes. The moment you understand that your attention is your most valuable asset, everything in your life becomes sharper, clearer, and more meaningful. Everything. There is a moment that arrives in every person's life when they can no longer blame the world for their lack of clarity. When they realize that distraction is not the problem, everything, but their relationship to it is. You may have felt this moment yourself, the frustration of starting the day with good intentions, only to watch your energy leak away through tiny cracks. Everything, a notification here, a random thought there. A quick scroll that turns into 20 minutes. Everything. A task that should take 10 minutes somehow stretching into an hour because your mind is scattered across a dozen invisible threads. Everything. If you've ever ended a day feeling exhausted yet strangely unaccomplished, you've experienced the silent power that scattered focus holds over your life. To reclaim that power, everything, you must first understand something essential. Your brain is not designed for a world filled with constant stimulation. It was built for depth, for concentration, everything, for extended periods of meaningful work. When you jump from one thing to another, your brain doesn't simply switch. It carries residue from the last activity, everything. Psychologists call this attention residue, and it's the reason you can close your email tab but still feel mentally pulled toward what you just read. Everything. Every time you shift your attention, you pay a cost. A tiny withdrawal is taken from your mental bank account, and over time, those withdrawals add up until your mind feels bankrupt, tired, everything, unfocused and overwhelmed. Imagine standing in a quiet room with a single candle. Its flame is steady, bright, almost hypnotic. That flame represents your focused mind. Everything. Now imagine opening a window, then another, then another. With each opening, the wind grows stronger, flickering the flame, weakening it. Eventually, the candle still burns, everything, but it's fragile. It can't generate warmth. It can't light much around it. This is what distraction does. It doesn't extinguish your potential, everything. It just weakens it until you no longer shine the way you were meant to. But here's the empowering part: you can close the windows. You can quiet the room, everything. You can restore the strength of your inner flame, everything. And it all begins with understanding that focus is less about forcing yourself to concentrate and more about eliminating the forces that pull your attention away, everything. Consider the story of a writer who struggled for years to finish a book. She wasn't lacking talent or passion. What she lacked was stillness. Every time she sat down to write, everything, she would check her messages, rearrange her desk, get a snack, suddenly remember an email she needed to send. Hours would pass, everything. And she'd have written a few scattered paragraphs, none of which felt like her best work. One day, exhausted and disappointed in herself, she realized something, everything. It wasn't that she couldn't write. It was that she had never fully arrived in the moment long enough to let her creativity breathe. So she made one small change, everything. She placed her phone in another room, not silenced, not turned upside down, physically out of reach, and suddenly her mind felt different, lighter, quieter, more capable. Within months, everything. She finished the book she had been trying to write for 3 years. Not because she became more motivated, but because she protected her attention like it was treasure, everything. This is the heart of focus mastery, learning to guard the gateways of your mind. When you wake up in the morning, you have a limited reservoir of mental energy, everything. How you use it determines the quality of your day. If you start by checking your phone, your mind is immediately filled with noise. Other people's lives, notifications, updates, problems, everything. Requests, images, opinions. Without even realizing it, you've given away the quiet clarity that should have belonged to you. But if you begin your morning with intention, everything, even a small one, sitting in silence for a minute, breathing deeply, choosing the first thing you want to think about, you set the tone for your entire day, everything. Focus isn't only about cutting distractions, it's about consciously choosing what deserves your attention. Think of your mind like a garden. Whatever you water grows. If you water fear, everything, it grows. If you water doubt, it grows. If you water clarity, discipline, and creativity, those grow too. But no garden thrives when everything is trying to grow at once. You must choose. Everything you must prune. You must cultivate deliberately. One powerful way to do this is by creating focus zones throughout your day. These are small, everything, defined blocks of time when you allow your mind to go deep, uninterrupted, into a task that matters. During these zones, your phone is away, your notifications are off, everything, and your environment supports concentration. Even just 20 minutes can create momentum. Over time, these focus zones compound. They train your brain to enter depth quickly, everything, to remain there longer, and to trust that distractions don't own you, everything. Another important piece of focus mastery is learning to quiet mental clutter, the internal noise that can be just as distracting as anything external. Overthinking, worrying, everything, multitasking in your own head, replaying old conversations, imagining future problems, these drain your attention even when the world around you is quiet, everything. The solution isn't to suppress thoughts, it's to create space for them to move through your mind without taking over, everything. Sometimes that means writing down everything bouncing in your head so your brain no longer needs to hold it. Sometimes it means pausing for 30 seconds to breathe and reset, everything. Sometimes it means asking yourself one simple question. What is the one thing that matters right now? That question alone can bring you back to center, everything. There is also a deeper level to focus, one that has less to do with productivity and more to do with your relationship with yourself. When you commit to focus, everything, you're not just becoming more efficient, you're reclaiming ownership of your life. You're telling yourself and the world that your time is valuable, that your goals matter, everything, that your mind is not a playground for distraction but a place of creation, depth, and possibility, everything. And once you feel that, once you experience what it's like to be fully present in your work, your conversations, your decisions, there is a sense of inner peace that rises naturally, everything. It's the peace of knowing you are no longer pulled in 1,000 directions. The peace of hearing your own thoughts clearly again, everything. The peace of creating from a place of strength instead of stress. Mastering focus doesn't require perfection. You will still get distracted sometimes. You will still lose your rhythm, everything. But the goal is not to eliminate distraction entirely. It's to recover quickly, to return to clarity with intention, to recognize the moment your mind wanders and gently bring it back. Everything. Every time you do this, you strengthen the muscle of attention. You build a deeper connection with your own mind. And as that connection grows, the noise of the world feels less powerful. Everything. The distractions feel less tempting. Your attention begins to serve you, not steal from you. You think clearer, act clearer, live clearer. Everything. You discover a strength inside you that had always been waiting for you to quiet the noise long enough to hear it. That is focus mastery. Everything. Not a rigid discipline, but a profound freedom. The freedom that comes from being fully present, fully aware, and fully alive in the moment you're in. Momentum is a quiet, invisible force. Everything. Yet when it takes hold of your life, it feels as if the entire universe begins to lean in your favor. You wake up differently. You move differently. Everything. Even the smallest actions carry a sense of clarity and purpose, and what once felt heavy or complicated begins to feel natural, almost effortless. But momentum doesn't arrive by accident. Everything. It grows step by step, from the way you shape your days, from the decisions you make when no one is watching. Everything. And from the commitment you hold even on the days when motivation is nowhere to be found. Everything. To live with momentum is to understand that greatness is not created in a single burst of inspiration, but in the stringing together of powerful, everything, intentional days that don't have to be perfect, just aligned. Imagine someone who decides to transform their fitness. On the first day, the changes feel huge. Everything. Running when their body hasn't run in months, eating healthy when they're used to indulgence, sleeping early when late nights have become a habit. Everything. But something begins to shift around day 7, day 12, day 20. The choices that once felt like a fight begin to feel like a rhythm. Their identity starts to shift. Everything. Their mind stops asking, "Do I feel like it?" and instead asks, "What's the next step?" This is momentum. Everything. It's the moment you stop pushing your life uphill and start allowing the hill to carry you forward. There is a simple truth about momentum that many people never learn. Everything. You don't need to do more to build it. You just need to do what matters consistently. Often, people try to change their lives through massive effort. Everything, thinking a dramatic overhaul will be the key. But more often, they end up burning out before the change truly takes hold. Everything. Think about the person who tries to fix their entire life in a single day. Deep cleaning the house, planning the month, starting a new diet, setting new goals. Everything. Taking on a new project at work. Their energy peaks for a moment, but then collapses. Momentum isn't built through explosive effort. It's built through sustainable effort. Everything. One meaningful action repeated daily beats one heroic action repeated rarely. And sustaining that effort begins with the way you speak to yourself. Everything. We often underestimate how powerful inner dialogue can be. Momentum grows from language. Simple phrases like, "I'll do what I can today." "I don't need perfection." Everything. Just progression. Or, "This matters for who I'm becoming." When someone tells themselves this kind of truth, they begin to shift from pressure to purpose. Everything. One of the biggest enemies of momentum is the belief that if a day isn't perfect, the entire streak is ruined. But in reality, momentum is more resilient than people think. Everything. A single missed day is not failure, it's simply an interruption. What matters is your willingness to return, to start again, to keep the thread intact. Think of a musician. Everything. They don't master their craft by practicing for 8 hours one day and then avoiding the instrument for the next 2 weeks. They return often, sometimes for long sessions. Everything. Sometimes for short ones, sometimes with energy, sometimes without. Consistency is the real teacher. The musician who keeps showing up becomes fluid, expressive. Everything. Connected to the music in a way that someone practicing in irregular bursts never experiences. Your life works the same way. Momentum is built by showing up, fully when you can, everything, partially when you must, but always with intention. Another key element of momentum is understanding the difference between urgency and pacing. Urgency can spark a new beginning, everything, but pacing sustains the journey. When you move at a pace that respects your capacity, your responsibilities, and your emotional bandwidth, your actions become repeatable. Everything. That repeatability is what creates the feeling of stability that momentum thrives on. Picture someone who decides to write a book. If they commit to writing 5,000 words every day, everything, they might survive that for a week before exhaustion sets in. But someone who commits to 500 words a day has a pace they can maintain for months. Everything. And months of steady work inevitably outperform 1 week of intense effort, followed by 3 weeks of burnout. Momentum honors the long game, everything. It's also important to recognize the role of environment in momentum. When your surroundings support your goals, your decisions feel easier, everything. It might be as simple as keeping your workspace clear so your mind feels open, laying out your clothes the night before so your morning begins with clarity, everything. Or keeping distractions out of reach so your focus strengthens naturally. Small structural changes can eliminate resistance, and the less resistance you feel, everything, the more naturally momentum flows. Success is not just discipline, it is design. You don't have to fight your environment, you can shape it so it carries you, everything. Every person who has ever lived with unstoppable momentum shares a common practice: they protect their energy. They understand that consistency doesn't mean constant intensity. Everything. Some days require deep work, other days require rest, reflection, or recalibration. Momentum is never about speed, it's about continuity, everything. There will be mornings when you feel unstoppable and others when you feel disconnected, everything. But momentum grows not from how you perform on your best days, it grows from how you treat yourself on your hardest days. Do you abandon the process, or do you simply adjust the pace, everything? Do you criticize yourself, or do you encourage yourself? Do you demand perfection, or do you honor progress? Everything. A powerful example of this can be seen in people who build long-term habits like journaling, meditation, or exercise. Everything. The ones who succeed aren't the ones who feel inspired every day. They are the ones who make the habit small enough to maintain on any day. Journaling can be 10 pages or 2 sentences. Everything. Meditation can be 30 minutes or 2 mindful breaths. Exercise can be an intense workout or a short walk, everything. The beauty of momentum is that even the smallest action keeps your identity aligned with your goal. When you stay aligned, everything becomes easier to return to the next day, everything. Perhaps the most transformative aspect of momentum is the way it changes your self-image. With each repeated action, you begin to see yourself differently, everything. You stop identifying as someone who trees and begin identifying as someone who lives this way. The person who writes daily begins to see themselves as a writer, everything. The person who saves money consistently begins to see themselves as financially disciplined. The person who prioritizes health begins to see themselves as someone who values their body, everything. Identity is the fuel of momentum. When you believe something about yourself, your actions naturally follow. And yet, it is equally important to protect yourself from burnout, everything. Momentum is not a race. It's not the pressure to keep adding more. Burnout often happens when people confuse momentum with acceleration. When they think that the more they do, the better, everything. True momentum is sustainable. It feels energizing, not exhausting. It has room for rest, room for real life, room for humanity. A powerful day might be productive, but a powerful week, month, everything, or year includes restoration. If you want your success to be your normal, not your peak, you must make space for breathing, everything. One of the simplest ways to prevent burnout is to close each day with a small ritual, something that tells your mind, I did what I could today, everything, and that is enough. It could be writing down 3 wins, reflecting on what you learned, or preparing tomorrow's first task. These rituals anchor your progress, everything. They allow each day to feed the next, and that is how momentum becomes more than a feeling. It becomes a lifestyle. When you begin stringing together days with intention, alignment, everything, presence, and pacing, you start to feel something profound. Life becomes lighter. Decisions become easier. Confidence rises quietly from the inside. Everything. You stop overthinking every step because your steps become habitual. You stop questioning your ability because your actions prove your capability. Momentum becomes your companion, everything. And with it, success becomes your normal rhythm. Some people believe that momentum is fragile, but the truth is that once it roots itself in your life, everything, it becomes one of the strongest forces you can carry. It's there when you wake up, there in your smallest choices, there even when you're tired. And the more you honor it, everything, the more it honors you back. Each day becomes an opportunity, not to be perfect, but to stay connected to the person you are becoming. Momentum is built one day at a time, everything. And every day you choose to move forward, even by an inch, you make it easier for tomorrow to follow the same path. You don't have to rush. You don't have to push yourself to extremes. Everything. You only have to maintain the quiet promise you make to yourself to keep going, to stay aligned, to remain faithful to the life you are building. Everything. And the beauty of it all is that once momentum becomes part of who you are, greatness stops feeling like a distant achievement and starts feeling like your natural state of being.